Oh, thank you so much, Brendan. You talk about the focus recruiting model at LinkedIn. I was really impressed. Can you give a quick, or maybe not so quick, a rundown of what you mean with that?
Sure. So let's see if I can make it as sort of clear and concise as possible. So it's sort of set against the backdrop that, in my experience, recruiters seem to be running around sort of chasing their tail a lot. Prioritization is hard. Focus can be difficult, yet there's more data than there's ever been that can help prioritize in a really focused, kind of simple way. And as we started thinking about this model, we call it sort of data-driven recruiting. Pretty simple way to sum it up. I went around and talked to a lot of our recruiters and said, "Hey, can you list out for me the next 50 to 100 people that you're going to call for any given role, and why?" And myself included, I couldn't probably get past probably 5 or 6 people in terms of stack ranking out of 100 how I should spend my time. And it was really clear to me that there is really no prioritization that goes on in recruiting, largely about who to pursue. It comes down to making judgment about backgrounds, other people that are referred, perhaps. So really what we sort of built out was taking a page out of a lot of sales and marketing strategies and things like that, where we started by sitting down. One example I'll give you, we sat down with our head of engineering, and at the time hiring senior systems infrastructure engineers was a priority, still is today. And we said, first, we want to get really clear on what makes a world-class systems infrastructure engineer, a quality bar that we can articulate, quantify. We use past performance scores from our current infrastructure engineering employees, and wanted to get to the point where if one of our engineering leaders saw a profile, they'd be able to sort of snap their fingers and say, "That's the person I want to hire." So we established that bar in a quantitative way. And if you picture a sort of a 2x2 graph, 4-box graph, on one axis we had that quality score, and then on the other axis we call it an affinity score. And those are signals that we can pick up, on our case on LinkedIn, but you could get them from anywhere. You could get them on the open web. But sorry, signals that would help us as recruiters really get laser focused on who to call first and how to prioritize our time. And those signals are, does someone follow your company? If someone clicks on follow GitLab, statistically that matters. Do they share content related to the domain that we want to hire for? Do they follow companies that are a proxy for, they might be a good systems infrastructure engineer? Do they like content that's related to what we care about? And then the most obvious and most overlooked signal is, do they have a first degree connection of consequence within the company? So as we gather those signals, we plotted the talent pool against them. So we found the top 2,000 people that met the quality bar, and we plotted them against this 2x2 graph. The upper right is highest quality and highest affinity. And we found that 699 of the best 2,000 system, sorry, I'm getting over a cold. 699 of the best 2,000 systems infrastructure engineers were connected to our engineers. So a third of the market had first degree connections, were following LinkedIn, and had quality that we scored off the charts. And the reason I mention that is because those 699, which we deem to be the best in quality and best in terms of their affinity towards our company, that is all I wanted the recruiting team to focus on. Just that's it. Don't focus on anyone else. Don't source more. Just focus on these people that we have all these signals on, and let's focus on converting them. So that's what we did. And to do that, we went to our head of engineering and said, "Look, I don't even want the recruiters reaching out to these people. We'll mobilize you and your team. We'll write emails. We'll explain what our strategy is. And we need you to really help pull your team into this process of outreach and recruitment." And what we found when we did that was, and again, we typed the emails, typed the follow-up, we project managed the heck out of the process. But the neat thing about it was we saw the response rate, which had been about 28% from candidates that we were passively recruiting, to 85%. So that gave us, I mean, this was the first sort of pilot we did using this method. And then we, from there, just decided, because the statistics were so strong, to put a tremendous amount of focus on that. So today, if I talk to a recruiter, what I want to understand is how big is the total addressable market for their particular rec that they're filling. I don't care how many people are in the pipeline. I just want to know that, do they know the market well enough? And then if they sized it up with these signals, so then they can prioritize the best people in that market to then hopefully get a higher conversion rate. I mean, that's sort of the simple and kind of quick way to sum it up.
Thank you so much. That is super helpful. I'm glad we got you on the call again, because my explanation wasn't anywhere close to that. Dave, do you have any questions or things you'd like to know more about?
No, it's a great description, Brendan, and it sounds like you're getting like double benefit or maybe exponential benefit from the fact that you're working in theaters, because one of your assets that you're using is affinity, which, you know, those folks that are connected to somebody, who follow LinkedIn, who do these various things, are more likely to reply. Then you get the benefit of a manager reaching out directly, which should be contributing to a greater response rate, as opposed to hearing from somebody on the recruiting team. I think the stat across all LinkedIn data, 30+% increase when it's a hiring manager directly. And then you have I'm sure you're crafting messages that really flatter these folks and talk about exactly the process you just articulated. Hey, we've segmented the market. We understand who the very best people in the world are, and we've sifted it all down and really want to have a focused conversation with you about an opportunity at LinkedIn. It's something I think we could pick up on and maybe replicate or even iterate on at GitLab, to have one of the variables be something we care about, is location factor. We want to know, how do we index on somebody that's located not in the Bay Area, but meets our bar, is considered one of the best in this field on our qualitative assessment of how good they are. And then if they happen to be in a lower cost market, that'd be a real cool variable for us to play with.
Yeah, yeah. You got it. You totally got it, Dave. And that, you can throw whatever signals you kind of want in there. And I mean, today, most of these signals are, when we started this process I'm describing, we were kind of cobbling it together. We didn't really have the tooling and instrumentation to do it. So, but today, if I run that search for infrastructure engineer, staff level infrastructure engineers or whatever it might be, all of these signals now pop up in search results. So there's sort of, these signals are there, and you can pick whatever signals you want to focus on. And it's been, I mean, it really went from being like, let's source, to let's understand the market, and then let's project manage our engineering leadership team to help with the outreach. And we even found that if someone in engineering said, nah, I don't want to reach out to Dave, he and I are friends, it feels uncomfortable. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, but we would just say, hey, can we use your name? Most times people would say yes. If we just put someone's name in the subject line, the same result would happen. Just putting, hey, Dave, Brendan thinks you'd be great at GitLab, the same. So there's basic tactics you can start weaving in there. The downside, I mean, it's not necessarily a downside, but you just need to be mindful of it, is, you want to make sure we want to make sure we're not getting too much homogeneity, given that, we're relying on like who knows each other. So you could even drop that signal. And then for anyone who didn't have affinity, but was high on the quality, so like made our quality bar on paper, had no affinity to the company, that's where we started to use sort of branding and marketing, true marketing, consumer marketing, would send them white papers and other things just to warm people up and say, hey, Dave, just like you said, we've sized up the market. We really understand that you're one of the top people quantitatively. We'll figure that out. Would love to stay in touch with you. Here's a white paper on whatever, data privacy. Let me know if you want to talk further, and just slowly over time try to nurture
campaigns. Yeah.
Exactly.
And maybe encourage them to follow the company, so that they're either part of a talent CRM or just a followership content drip that'll happen over a period of time. And when the time's right, they engage. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's marketing. I'm not a marketer, but as we started this, I told our CMO, I said, I would like to have support from like a true
sort of data-driven marketer who really understands the consumer sort of look and feel of marketing. So it's one of those opportunities where if you've got a good marketing mind, it can really be a lot of fun.
That's great. And we've got a couple in the marketing org that help us on things like this, as well as a talent brand person that's resident within recruiting who's wonderful, and she'll assist with some of these initiatives.
That's really the account-based marketing part of marketing that you're
Exactly.
leveraging. It's awesome.
Right. We've done a market segmentation. We've targeted you as someone we'd love to work with. In this case, it's have you join us as a potential team member, as opposed to become part of, have you use our product as part of your portfolio.
Cool.
That's excellent.
Do you have any other questions or things you want to talk about during this call, Dave?
You talked a little, Brendan, about some hiring managers maybe being reticent, either because they know the person, they don't want, it feels awkward because of the relationship. Have you run into any other obstacles with rolling out this approach that would be beneficial for my team to be aware of as we consider it?
I mean, some of it, I mean, it is a behavioral change for our recruiters. And, we built some success in sort of scaling recruiting by having a lot of division of labor across the steps in recruitment, and people just, if I was a junior sourcer, I had one thing to do and I just did that all day long. So now we're saying, hey, we want you to step back, size up the market, spend some extra time, which for a lot of recruiters who just want to nail their numbers, nail their in-mail numbers, nail their outreach numbers. This is a little bit of a different shift. And we've even seen that kind of like influence and advising, which people talk a lot about in recruiting, that becomes a bigger part of the job. So if you're a engineering director and I'm trying to recruit mobile engineers for your crew, the expectation is starting to become, you gotta go spend time with Dave. Like you won't be behind your desk just sourcing, because you're going to project manage this effort of dividing and conquering this market. Dave's going to do some stuff. You're going to do some stuff. And, we don't do it as much, but at the beginning we kind of micromanaged to check our majority of recruiters looking at these signals before they reach out, if nothing else, because, sort of like at the very least, guys, if you reach out to Dave and it turns out that Dave is a good friend of mine and I sit right next to you, it's kind of embarrassing. And that would happen. So I remember there was once someone would reach out to a really good engineer, female engineer, at a company you would know. Literally within about an hour, an email went, that in-mail, which was a basic kind of crappy outreach.
Right.
And a lot of recruiters send, I would say there's a lot of bad outreach that goes on. Someone came over to the recruiting team there and said, hey, why are you reaching out to my friend? If you just looked at her profile, you would know that we have a lot of things in common. We're very tight. This is a ridiculous thing. All you need to do is, and literally the person worked on the same floor as the recruiting team. So that kind of put a little bit of a dent in our brand, and we were sort of eating some humble pie saying, oh, sorry, we should have checked. So a lot of it's change management, just to slow down and take advantage of all the data that's available before you start the actual outreach. So that's just probably the biggest tip, is it kind of slow down to go fast, less numbers, more quality.
Right. And go for more of a rifle shot than a buckshot approach to targeting a marketplace.
Exactly.
Very cool. How about pilots? How you talked about that one example of the 2000. Did you have a few of those that you, with particular recruiters and hiring managers, to build that data-driven success story and then amplify it more broadly across the team? How did that initial rollout go?
That's exactly what we did. So we took a guy who's pretty data savvy and put him on those 699 that were high affinity and high quality. And our expectation was this is going to be a nurturing exercise where relationships will deepen and that will be good. But actually that guy, that recruiter, became the most successful recruiter that we've ever had during that period for infrastructure. So we found that it went even further than just sort of warming people up. We were able to get a lot of conversion. And then we also found the people that made it through this channel, this data-driven recruiting outreach channel, made it through our process with a higher success rate and higher velocity than any other channel. A lot of it's probably because they're already warmed up, et cetera. But it was just another data point to say, let's really make this kind of the heart and soul of a lot of how we recruit. So it's been it was an easy case to make after we saw that type of success.
It's great because you're getting a pretty quick indicator of, are they great, and are they potentially motivated, connected, and warm to the opportunity? And if those two things happen, your assumption should play out via the data that these folks are more successful, more likely to join and succeed throughout LinkedIn loops and ultimately receive and accept offers.
You got it. And we interestingly, we don't have a CRM. So that's we're in the process of looking at putting in a new ATS. I would probably even argue that the CRM is probably even more important, just because we now have all this great way to gather this data and to be more intelligent, and we don't have the best tooling. So if you're a CRM guy, awesome. If you're not, I think having a good CRM matters.
We don't have one yet. We contemplated it on this year's budget. It didn't make the cut, but we're trying to scrappily stand up our own version of one internally.
Got it. Cool.
Really appreciate you taking the time to educate us on what you're doing. And I'd love your permission to come back to you with any questions, or potentially even have you join a forum with a couple of my recruiters to talk more about it.
Happy to do it. There's a couple decks and videos floating around that I can send over to you that kind of breaks it down a little bit more. But happy to hop on a call or whatever it might be.
Beautiful. Very much appreciated, Brendan.